So, Larry, if you will, share with us some of the precautions that patients may need to look at when using medical cannabis.
Well, I think first and foremost, patients should realize that because it's medical cannabis, we know that THC is a potent drug. It has potent effects. And of course, it depends on dose, it depends on delivery system, depends on timing, frequency of dosing. Those things need to be worked carefully. I know you've often relayed the message start low and go slow. And I think this is a great advice for patients. Another thing related to this is that it really needs extra attention to keep it out of the hands of children, to store your medical cannabis in a locked and a secure place, because some of the effects in children can many incidents have been reported where people children get into the product and maybe wind up in the ER. So we really want to minimize exposure to children. I think another precaution just to bear in mind is that cannabis doesn't affect everyone the same way. Just because your neighbor has a certain effect, it may not give you exactly the same thing. So we need to be cautious in approaching this. Start low, go slow, understand what you're taking, understand, how it might work with the other meds you have or with your condition. Discuss with your doctor or your pharmacist or whoever your healthcare provider is, those types of things, and be cautious in adjusting your doses.
Absolutely. And that is so important to MCPA is, for our patients to remember that this is real medicine and that, it can definitely affect your children and your pets. And we highly recommend that you keep your medication in a lockbox. We actually have a campaign that is out there and, that the dispensaries will actually be selling lock boxes in there to lockbox your medication. Sometimes patients feel bad and they don't feel like, getting back up and maybe going to the medicine cabinet to put it back up. But this is an easy way. It can be sitting beside you. You just flip a lock and it's secure and safe from your children. We don't want any bad experiences with that. And then, yes, definitely start low and go slow because, that's the, overall experience that we hear so often from our patients is that, you know, what may work for a person weighing say 200 pounds versus a 100-pound woman, but it doesn't really matter. It's just how your body processes the cannabinoids. And so we just need to be real safe with that and always discuss your medication, your medical cannabis use with your practitioner and pharmacist. It's really, really important to do so.
Might just add one other point that about the route of delivery. It's quite different. The effects are quite different with smoking cannabis compared to taking an oral product, and maybe even differences among those oral products. And so you need to think carefully. It's not wise to just switch back and forth expecting the same type of effect profile. So again, uh, go carefully, know what you're taking, know what's your anticipated time course of the effect that's coming.
That's one of the reasons why we encourage the real time tracking of the data for the patients, because oftentimes a patient will take a product and have a very specific experience, but even a couple hours after that, the memory of how it affected them 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour into the medication is not as clear as it is in the moment. And so the real time tracking, taking out your phone, just putting in how are you feeling, which the app can also remind you of depending on if you're using it in inhalation method versus an ingestible method. The app will remind you, hey, it's been 30 minutes since you took your medicine. How you feeling? Being able to look back on your own journal with your doctor after the first 30 to 90 days of using cannabis, you'll see patterns of what's working and what's not way better than your memory would be able to provide you evidence of 90 days after. I don't remember what I ate for dinner last night. So really important for the journaling to be as real time as possible and for the first couple months of a patient's use for them to be in communication with their physician about not only what the data is saying, but how is it making them feel throughout the course of their day? How has their other medicine regimen been affected by this, if at all? And obviously, things like diet and exercise matter too, but at minimum, tracking how you're feeling while you use the cannabis and then talking to your doctor about it, you'll get a world of insights by just following that simple practice.
I think that's really, really important because you're right. I can't remember what I had for breakfast, much less what medications I may have taken. And so, and we look back 30, 60, 90 days, this way, through tracking your data through the ReLeaf app, you're going to be able to look back and know. And then, of course, your practitioner will know as well. And so it's just really valuable information that we can share with the rest of the world. And so, Tyler, do you have anything you'd like to contribute to that?
The only thing I would say is be more mindful of the label rather than the product name. And that specific, like when you go dispensary to dispensary, or you look at brand versus brand within the dispensary, it's gonna really come down to what's on that label versus what's on the product name. Like what's the ratio of THC to CBD? What other terpenes are prevalent or found traceable in that product? So that'd be the only other thing I would add is be mindful of the label more so than the brand, because that's going to be what really generates the outcome and the impact that you experience. The product name and the brand name, that doesn't mean anything. The brands aren't going to like to hear that, but that doesn't really mean anything in regards to patient experience. It's what's in that product, how much of it's in that product. And once they find that sweet spot for them, that's really what they should start focusing on when they go into the dispensary. Is they should care less about what the product name is and who made that product. They should really start to, or really want to stay within the range of what they found effective from, again, a THC percent, a CBD percent, and the terpenes that are in there as well, or even the minor cannabinoids as well.
So true.
That's a great point, I think, Tyler, because I don't know exactly how it will unfold, but in many states, you go to a dispensary and you have all these product names that can be quite confusing.
Right.
They're very similar in some cases, and so that's a great point.
Yeah.
Read the labels carefully.
Yeah, like for Austin lived in Colorado, and like the product names he purchased in Colorado, you might be able to find those same product names here, but they're not the same products. So like the label is really what's gonna be more of a guiding light, more of a truth on what that product actually can do.
And in the beginning, the first product you get, regardless of how experienced the bud tender is advising you on what to purchase, it's not a doctor giving you a prescription.
That's right.
So it's more on you as the patient and whoever's working at the dispensary to take whatever advice your doctor was able to provide you and kind of pick the best product. So sometimes that's not the best. The first product you try isn't always the best product. And so just tracking the label information after a couple purchases, you're going to, again, be able to see a little bit of data in your own use cases of what worked, what gave you adverse effects that you didn't really like versus, what made you feel really good the rest of the day or the rest of the night. And so I think that the minor cannabinoids and terpenes are often overlooked, but it's easy to track it in the app, and it's easy to talk to your doctor about it after 90 days once you have a little bit of a history of documentation, what you've done, what's worked, and what hasn't.
And I think that's so important to be able to track that information, to report it, and to do it on a daily basis because, you may feel differently, in a few days after using it. I know for my son Austin, it took a little while to find what actually worked better for him, and then getting it really into the system, and then later he was able to taper off more, and once he found out what really worked for him, and that it had really activated the endocannabinoid system in his body, and it made a huge impact on his life.